Okay, so you know that thought experiment? The one where you drop a mouse, a dog, and an elephant from a skyscraper?
Yeah, I think I've heard that one.
Well, most people, right, they think uh, the bigger the animal, the worse the splat.
Right.
But get this,
Mm-hmm.
the mouse, the mouse walks away unharmed.
Really?
It's true.
Oh,
That's because size, truly changes how everything works.
I could see that.
Yeah, and that's what we're deep diving into today.
Okay.
We're looking at how the laws of physics work differently
Yeah.
at all these different scales, from like tiny insects to massive whales.
I'm excited for this.
Yeah, we're going to see some pretty mind-bending stuff, like insects that can breathe underwater, air that feels like syrup, and the real reason why there aren't any like horse-sized ants running around.
Well, I think we all know the reason for that one.
Yeah, maybe, but the science behind it is really fascinating.
Well, I'm all ears.
So it all really comes down to scaling and the relationship between surface area and volume. So when you increase an animal's length like tenfold, right, the surface area increases by like 100-fold, but the volume increases by 1,000-fold.
Wow.
Yeah, and volume is tied to mass, of course.
Right, right.
So scaling isn't just about like things getting proportionally bigger or smaller.
Gotcha.
It's about how those changes in size affect how the world works.
So true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's think back to our falling friends, the mouse, the dog, and the elephant.
Okay.
So a large animal like an elephant, right, has a low surface area to volume ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So when it lands all that mass, right, it's concentrated in a really small area,
Oh, I see.
and that leads to a huge amount of force, like a massive impact.
Oof.
Yeah, it's like,
That's gotta hurt.
oh, you'd be an explosion, basically, an explosion of elephant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but the mouse, on the other hand, with its high surface area to volume ratio,
Yeah,
it spreads out that impact force over a much larger area.
I see.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the difference between dropping a bowling ball and a feather.
Right, the feather just kind of floats down.
Exactly. The feather has a larger surface area relative to its weight, so it just glides down nice and easy.
Makes sense.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit here
Okay.
and think about how something as simple as water, right?
Right.
Water,
Water, yeah.
it can totally change the game at different scales.
Hmm. I'm intrigued.
Right. I mean, water is everywhere.
Yeah.
But how could it be like so different for, other creatures?
I'll think about surface tension.
Okay.
Like at our scale, we barely even notice this like invisible skin on water, right?
Yeah.
It's caused by the attraction between water molecules.
Hmm.
But if you were, say, the size of an ant,
Yeah.
it would be a whole different story.
So you're telling me if I shrunk down to the size of an ant, a puddle could be dangerous?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
You could get trapped by that surface tension,
Wow.
and you wouldn't be able to break free. It would be like being stuck in glue.
That's crazy.
It really is mind-boggling how something so, like, normal to us, could be life or death at a different scale.
Totally. That's wild.
So how do you think insects survive in a world where, like, even a raindrop could kill them?
I don't know. I mean, especially the really tiny ones.
Yeah, they've come up with some pretty incredible adaptations.
Like what?
Well, a lot of them have like waxy exoskeletons
Uh-huh.
or tiny little hairs
Oh, okay.
that repel water so they don't get soaked.
So it's like they're wearing their own little raincoats.
Exactly. And get this, some diving insects, they've evolved what we call an outside lung.
An outside lung. What's that?
It's like a layer of air that gets trapped by these really densely packed hairs.
Oh.
And the surface tension of the water, it prevents the water from entering this air pocket
Wow.
so they can breathe underwater.
That's like nature's scuba gear.
It really is. It's amazing what nature can do.
That's incredible.
But what about the insects that are so small you can barely see them?
Like
Like the fairy fly. Have you heard of that one?
the fairy fly.
Yeah, one of the smallest insects. I mean, they're tiny.
Okay, and what about them?
For them, even air is a challenge.
Air.
Yeah.
Air.
How could air be a problem? Well, because of how incredibly small they are, they experience air almost like it's a thick syrup.
Really?
It's constantly resisting their movement.
Wow.
So to move through the syrupy air, they've developed these hairy paddle-like wings, and they basically swim through the air.
So they're experiencing the world in like slow motion.
You could say that.
That's I mean, it's amazing how something we just take for granted, like air, can be so different depending on your size.
It makes you wonder, why don't we see giant insects roaming the earth?
That's a good question.
There are limits to how big or how small life can get.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And to understand why, we got to look at the challenges size creates for different creatures.
Okay, so we've seen how falling and water work differently for tiny creatures, and even the air itself is a different experience for them.
Yeah.
And now we're going to explore why there aren't any giant insects or microscopic elephants.
Exactly.
This is blowing my mind.
I know, it's really fascinating stuff.
Let's keep going.
All right, so picture this, right? An ant,
Okay.
but it's the size of a horse.
A horse-sized ant.
Yeah, I mean, those spindly little legs that work perfectly fine at its normal size, they would just crumble under all that weight.
Oh, so it's not just about strength then. It's
Yeah.
about like the whole structure of the body.
Yeah, exactly. As an animal gets bigger, its skeleton needs to like scale up, but it needs to scale up way more to support the extra weight.
Oh, okay.
This is where the square cube law comes in.
The square cube law. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so basically when you double the length of something,
Uh-huh.
its surface area increases fourfold,
Okay.
but the volume and therefore the weight increases eightfold.
Wow. Okay, so the bigger you get, the harder it is to just hold yourself up.
Exactly, and that's why elephants have those massive thick legs,
Yeah.
and why the biggest animals on Earth, whales, they live in the water.
Oh, right. The buoyancy helps them out.
Yeah, gravity's not such a big deal in the ocean.
That's so cool how size can basically determine where you can even live.
And it's not just about holding yourself up either.
What else?
Think about oxygen.
Okay.
Bigger animals need a lot more oxygen to
Right.
keep those massive bodies going.
Chill them, yeah.
Now imagine trying to get oxygen to every single cell in a horse-sized ant.
I can't even imagine.
It would be a nightmare.
Logistically, yeah.
Their circulatory system, their respiratory system, it would have to be like super efficient.
Just to keep up.
Yeah, just to function.
So giant insects are out because of like structure and breathing issues.
Pretty much.
Okay, so what about going the other way? Why do we see like microscopic elephants?
Miniaturization.
Yeah.
It's got its own problems.
Like what?
One of the big ones is heat.
Heat.
Yeah, regulating their temperature.
Okay, so like how we were talking about the surface area to volume ratio before,
Exactly.
right? The mouse survived the fall because of its high surface area.
Yeah, but that same high surface area works against them when it comes to heat.
Really?
They lose heat super fast.
Oh, I see.
It's hard for them to stay warm.
So it's like a tiny little radiator just constantly giving off heat.
That's a good way to put it.
So what do?
Well, they gotta have super high metabolisms.
High metabolisms, okay?
They're constantly burning energy to stay warm.
So that's why a mouse has to eat like its own weight in food every day.
Pretty much just to stay alive.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that fast metabolism, it affects other things too.
Like what?
Their cells work faster, which means they age faster.
Oh, wow. So size affects how long you live too.
It's all connected.
It's amazing how one thing like size can affect like an animal's whole life.
It really shows how interconnected life is, you know? Everything's got to be in balance.
Speaking of balance, there's this idea that smaller animals are like proportionally stronger.
The ant that can lift like 10 times its weight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are they secretly superhuman or what?
Well, it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
An ant can lift a lot relative to its size,
Yeah.
but it's not because their muscles are actually stronger.
Okay.
It's about how muscle strength relates to body size.
So how does that work?
Muscle strength is basically about the cross-section of the muscle, but body weight, that's about volume.
Right. Okay.
So as an animal shrinks, its muscle cross-section decreases slower than its volume.
So they have more muscle for their size.
Exactly. It's like a tiny engine in a really light car.
Makes sense, but that doesn't mean they're super fast or anything, right?
Right. They might be able to lift a big crumb,
Yeah.
but they're not winning any races.
Different strengths for different needs.
Exactly. And that brings us back to those giant insects.
Right. Why aren't there any?
Size affects everything. How you're built, how you stay warm, how you breathe, even how long you live.
It's a lot to balance.
It is. And what works at one size doesn't always work at another.
This has been an amazing look at the world of size.
It really has.
From exploding elephants to microscopic challenges, it's wild how much we just take for granted at our human size.
It really makes you appreciate the diversity of life.
Okay, so we've seen how size affects like everything from falling to how long you live.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We've talked about being super big and super small, but what does it all mean for us? Why should we care about all this weird physics stuff?
Well, I think it makes you appreciate the world in a new way.
How so?
It makes you realize that we're just one size out of many,
Right.
and each size comes with its own challenges and opportunities.
So it's like taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And there are practical applications too.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, look at how insects manage heat and airflow. That's giving us ideas for building better cooling systems.
So we can learn from this and use it to make things better.
Absolutely. Nature is full of amazing solutions.
Just waiting to be discovered.
It's like a giant toolbox of ideas.
It's incredible to think that by looking at the world, big or small, we can find solutions to our own problems.
Nature is our greatest teacher.
It makes you wonder, if size is so important to life here on Earth, what could that mean for life on other planets? Could there be, like, giant, intelligent insects somewhere out there?
That's a great question, and it's one that scientists think about all the time.
I mean, are there creatures out there that are bigger than our planet? Or so tiny we can't even see them?
It's definitely possible.
It's kind of scary to think that everything we know about size might not apply everywhere.
It challenges everything we think we know. The
Yeah.
truth is we've barely scratched the surface of what's out there.
Right.
But that's what makes searching for alien life so exciting.
It really is.
It's the ultimate unknown.
Maybe by studying life here on Earth, all the different sizes, we can get a better idea of what might be out there.
It's a good place to start.
From tiny ants to giant whales, it's like a practice run for exploring the universe.
Nature is the best teacher we have.
So true.
If we understand how size works, how physics and biology interact, then we're better equipped to handle the unknown.
Whether it's the deepest ocean or the farthest reaches of space,
Exact.
this deep dive into size has really left me with a lot to think about.
Good. That's the whole point.
It's amazing how much we still don't know.
There's always more to learn.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Absolutely. The journey never really ends.
So, to everyone listening out there, the next time you see a tiny little ant or look up at a massive tree,
Yeah.
think about all the incredible forces at play.
It's mind-blowing.
Remember that what we experience as humans, it's just one tiny view of life,
There are whole universes all around us.
shaped by their own rules, their own scales.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Never stop being curious.
That's what makes us human.
And who knows, maybe someday that curiosity will lead us to life beyond our own planet.
What a discovery that would be.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of size.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep diving deep.